are legendary actors in Korea. Anybody is lucky to cast these two actors. And when I presented my script to the production company, they asked me, you know, name me your pipe dream. Who would you want? We know it will be impossible. It will be impossible to get them. Just give me the two names that you want the most, and then maybe we'll try to find someone similar. And I said, Sun-kyun and Chang-dong would be the dream. And Lewis, our president, he thought about it and said, you know, that's not really a pipe dream. Great actors, they gravitate towards, you know, interesting scripts, and he thought that we might have a fighting chance. So we gave them the scripts, and they responded immediately, and they really liked the story. They wanted to meet the director. We had a couple of conversations, and then they were committed to the project.
Now, speaking about the script, I've sometimes joked on stage whether a movie is autobiographical, but I understand you did. This was sort of inspired by not necessarily like literal experience, but could you talk a little bit about the inspiration for the idea?
Well, first and foremost, my goal as a debuting director creating a Korean commercial film, I wanted to make a fun genre film, but as I was writing the screenplay, also personal elements seeped into the story as well. At the time, while I was writing the screenplay, I was in the midst or just about to marry my longtime girlfriend, now wife, and because of that, I think, the protagonists, I made them a newlywed couple, and I revolved the story heavily around their marital relationship. And I guess the stories about marriage I saw were usually very cynical. Either the central conflict usually revolves around each other. Usually they get into a big fight, or somebody makes an irredeemable mistake, or they just simply fall out of love. And I guess because I was in the cusp of marriage, I had a more romantic view about what the relationship could be. So I created a couple who were like best friends, who really supported and loved each other, and I threw them an external obstacle that was nobody's fault, and tried to create a story about how these two characters as a marital unit would overcome this obstacle.
There's nothing more romantic than a power drill to the head. Correct. But structurally, I think the film is also very interesting. I'd love to know a little bit about your process in designing the three-chapter structure, but also what I love about the gap between chapter 2 and chapter 3 is there's like a whole set piece that has been elided and becomes like a twist. And I think one of the, I guess it's the first time we've seen a PowerPoint presentation of this kind in a long time.
Yes, I think so. Yes, we had a lot of fun with the PowerPoint presentation. It's the most uncinematic thing in the world, and we put it in the climax of a debuting feature film. So everybody was incredibly nervous about it, at the same time very excited. And we tried to make it as cinematic as possible, make it as dramatic as possible, and I'm very proud of that scene. And this might be, do you have the word TMI, too much information? Yeah, but my mentor, director Bong, that was his favorite sequence of the film, so there's that.
Yeah, his taste.
Yeah. The three chapters. Yes. I think it just came naturally. Maybe I was thinking about the budgetary constraints of a debuting film, so I knew that I could only show n amount of scenes here, and I guess I unconsciously constructed the story into three chapters, just to show, you know, the sequences where the two characters' relationship changes the most dramatically.
There's certainly a perspective shift too. Like they're kind of together in the first one, and then in the second one, you're really following one of the characters, and the third one you're kind of following the other character.
Yes. Yeah. At first, it was more about, when I was first writing the script, it was more about, you know, the horrors of the sleepwalking symptoms. But I felt it didn't feel like a full movie. It felt kind of repetitive and dull as I was writing it. But then this perspective change kind of one day came to me, and that's when everything kind of clicked, and I knew what the story would be about. And then that's when I was confident enough to finish the story.
Before I throw to the audience, the last thing I want to discuss is I really love how you preserve the ambiguity of the ending. I think there are multiple ways you can read it, and I certainly don't want you to dispel it. But I really particularly love the potential reading of an actor who's perhaps an unsuccessful actor having to give the performance of his life in the final moments of the film. Was that something also that was like from the beginning an idea that you wanted to work towards, or was that something that was discovered through the process of working with the actors?
It was an idea that I had in mind and a potential interpretation of the film that I thought was very viable. And yes, you're absolutely right. I thought it was very interesting to interpret it that way. There's an irony in it. That's kind of happy, sad irony, or a touching sort of irony to that. And I really liked that interpretation as well.
And in terms of directing your actors, how did you communicate with them about sort of the interpretations, or were you very open and asked the actors to simply do what felt right to them, or did you have very strict, again, you don't have to just break the illusion?
I had a very clear interpretation and vision of the film in mind, so I stayed en route, and I told the cast and crew of how I felt about what the film is and should be, and I thought no matter what I think, in the end the film is an audience's medium. Once it's out, it's their property to interpret however they like. There are no wrong answers, right answers, and I believe that with whatever they bring to the film, they will have their own interpretations, which is as viable as mine.
Yeah, that's great. Right in the front row.
Yeah, so thank you so much for the film, and I want to ask, if you're telling how was the experience after having to play a couple so many decades in the past in those Hong Sang-soo films?
Right.
So just to repeat for upstairs, the question was just about how directing, what kind of feedback you got from the cast, seeing as they had played a couple in Hong Sang-soo films.
Well, the main feedback from the cast was that a little bit of context. The two did 4 movies together, but they were very independent and they were very short in the shooting days. A maximum of 6, I think, shooting days for each feature film, and they made a pledge or a what do you call it, a promise to one day start together in a commercial film, which I was lucky enough to be the benefactor of that promise. Yes, and I guess the main reaction to them being cast together after so much Hong Sang-soo independent films was that they were very relieved that they had this opportunity to finally fulfill their promise. And I was relieved because they have to play a newlywed, and I think the most difficult part of directing or acting is the chemistry between the two lovers, you know. And that's what the actors told me as well. The climax scene, the dramatic scenes, that's kind of written, and there's a clear guideline into how to perform those sort of performances. But these little cute moments of where we have to convince the blowing dub sort of stuff, you have to convince the audience that they are in fact a newlywed and they are in love. Those are the difficult sort of little acting nuances that they had to perfect, and because they had so much experience together, I think they nailed it perfectly.
Yes, right there.
It's so very clearly an apartment movie. Was there any other apartment movies that you drew inspiration from?
Did you draw any inspiration from other sort of contained thrillers, other movies that take place in a single apartment?
Wow, I should have prepared for that question, but
sometimes it's just osmosis, you know. You've seen movies.
Yeah, but I love those sort of contained space movies. I'm a sucker for those sort of chamber dramas. Yeah, those theatrical sort of performance-driven, contained location films, and I think I drew a lot of inspiration from that. Yeah.
Could you speak to the production design? And it was not a found apartment, as I understood. It was a full studio.
Yes, correct. It was. We made a full set to create the house. It was the height of COVID, and nobody was letting us borrow their house. And there was that whole plastering of the talisman thing that we had to overcome, and nobody was willing to do that to the house. So in the end, we had to resort to building a set, and it was a tough challenge for our production designer because the constraint of having the location in one in just as a house, as a single house, it meant that it had to be, at some point, we had to overcome the obstacle of being visually dull. And so we discussed this problem, and we discussed various potential solutions to this problem. And what we came up with was that because the story is consisting of 3 chapters, maybe we could give each chapter a different look. Obviously, the situation changes drastically, so the production design adheres to those situations as well, so it naturally changes. But also, I asked the production designer to maybe tweak the production design and the cinematography as well, so that it better represents each character's psychology, if you know what I mean. So, for example, in chapter 1, I wanted the house to feel more warm and cozy, just to portray how the love of the 2 newlyweds and how warm and cozy they are. And in the second chapter, I wanted the production design to be feel more claustrophobic and like as if they're living inside a prison almost, very sterile and cold, and that would better portray how stressed and hysteric Sujin, the wife character, has become. And the third chapter is just, I think it's not very subtle, and I think it stresses how manic everybody has become in that situation.
There was a question in the dress circle, yes?
This morning I slept through my alarm. Should I be worried?
No less than me. I also slept through my alarm. I'm increasingly jet lagged, but
do you have any experience with sleepwalking personally?
No, not so much sleepwalking. I have my own sleep disorder problems, but they don't harm others except for the loud snoring noises that my wife used to put up with.
There was a question in the balcony. I thought I saw a hand up there, but maybe not. Back down here. Oh, sorry. Yes, right there. Thank you.
Thanks for the movie. It feels so neat, kind of easy, smoothly flowing, and easy to watch. It's something that was hard to make, hard to do for you.
The question is just about how well the movie flows. I actually noticed on this watch, almost every cut or transition to a scene often has like a motif match, even if it's not a graphic match. Could you talk a little bit about the editing and the designing the flow of the film from the start?
Yeah, so because it's a constrained space, we didn't want to waste any opportunity shooting the film. The angles, usually it's a master and then a tight and etc., and we figure it out on the edit. But what we did is, because it's a constrained space, even during pre-production, everybody hustled together to figure out, how to make the best of it. You know how they say constraint is a form of liberation. We try to be creative in every single shot, in every single transition, and so what we had to do was be very meticulous with the storyboards. We calculated, we designed all the storyboards, even for the most mundane scenes, and then even during the edit, we mostly adhered to the storyboards that we designed. And although the editor, who's a great editor in Korea, a very famous editor, she put her own touches to make it even more better.
Right in the front, and we'll go over there. Yes.
I wanted to ask about the calming of the film, because I noticed a lot of it from just the husband just urinating on the floor in that one scene, transition to the rain dropping, pots falling, and keeping with the head, kind of calming down the dark.
Yeah, there's some, I guess, just touching on the comic touches that you put in the film.
Just wanted to know, was that always supposed to be a funny film, or did you set out to make it more make a funny film?
Yeah, did you set out to have sort of these comedic touches, or is it a product of making the film and finding opportunities for humor in a serious situation?
I think it's the latter. I never set out to make anything funny. I never intentionally tried to create a funny comedic scene or create funny lines. I think it's cheeky at best, and if there is comedy to it, I think it comes out of the absurdity of the situation and how real the two characters react to it, and I think that's where the absurd, black, dark sort of humor comes from. It's weird because I always, even during my days shooting short films, I categorize them as drama, very serious dramas when I submit them, but in the end the programmers, they always categorize it as comedies, and it's a pattern that I'm getting used to now.
It's been a theme all week. We had a filmmaker say that they tried to make a comedy, and the producer said it was a thriller. Right over there, this last question.
There's a big motif, especially at the beginning, what kind of starts the conflict is the sound.
Right.
I wanted to ask more specifically, were there any specific sounds that were like really challenging you managing to bring in the ambience of the film, or was there anything you would have liked to add on top of that, anything that just didn't seem logistical in the context of the narrative?
The question was with regards to the sound design of the film.
There are two sounds that I'm quite unsure about even to this day. One I won't mention because I think it might hinder your if you have a positive view of the film, it might I don't know, I don't want to dirty it or murky it. But the first one I can talk about is the face scratching sound. You know, we had a lot of debate about how they should sound like. I was kind of striving for a more realistic sound. What you would usually hear when you scratch your face like this, but our sound mixer, who is a veteran in the Korean film industry, he thought it should be much more grotesque, quite over the top, and in the end, we even had different camps, you know, who's right or wrong. I had a couple in my camp, he had a couple in his, and in the end we met with a compromise, which is this sound. And I think, I like it a lot now, but sometimes I wonder about the path not chosen.
Yeah, well, certainly got a reaction tonight. Please put your hands together for Jason.